Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, thank you for being here today as we began our bye week work yesterday. Lots of stuff that we put into the bye week to make it very productive. Certainly, it's good to come back home after a conference road win. Been a little while since we've been able to do that, and feel like we're getting better in a lot of areas. In a lot of areas, we are focused on improving as well. I guess I'll start off with talking about some of the injuries. I'm sure you guys want reports on that. Jake Hansen is now a full go. He has been cleared. I know he missed the last game. Cyrus is almost cleared. He did practice today in a limited role. Micah Pittman did practice with the team, and even though he was wearing a non-contact jersey, he participated in all drill work and all team work, so we feel he's progressing really well. And Brendan Schooler will probably practice tomorrow in most of the practice regimen, okay? And Jawan Johnson is still on a day-by-day basis, all right? I think that covers the injury report. That being said, open to questions.
Right here on the left, James.
Just to follow on Jawan, Mario, because he didn't travel, has there been a setback here? Because if it's been day by day and nearly game time decision for weeks, to not even travel indicates that this could be more serious. So has there been a setback of some kind with him?
No, I wish I could just find a better phrase or word to describe when you have an injury like that, a soft tissue injury, how it could kind of linger. But there is no setback. It is not worsened. It's just not quite there. We feel optimistic about it being, ready in the near future. But because it's taken as long as it has, I think we just say we'll keep saying day by day and keep everybody posted. And that way, there won't be any surprises one way or the other.
On the left, Eric.
Just speak to the possibility of getting these wide receivers back, whoever it is for the next game, and kind of how that might change your passing attack.
Well, it's we talked about things that are important this week, and one of them was, of course, healing up and getting quality reps as opposed to quantity. We have to develop our second-tier guys and some of the third-tier guys. And, the guys that we lost they're legitimate, not only intermediate threats, quick game threats, or guys that could stretch the field. So we certainly look forward to having those guys back. And when you have guys like that back, you feel like you can enhance a lot of the things that you do.
On the right, Tyson.
What's Juwan been able to do kind of in the meantime? And when he is good to go, is it as simple as plug in and play with him?
I don't know if it's ever plug and play. I think you have to do a certain amount of skill work or skill-related work to make sure that you can handle the rigors of a game. But he has been running straight ahead. He has been doing a lot of drill work. So there's enough there to say, hey, when this thing is a go, it'll be a relatively quicker comeback than the norm. But again, until we get to that point, I guess it's best. It's most fair for you and for us to just continue to monitor it and give information as it comes.
On the right, Ryan.
Mario, on that missed field goal, do you feel like the result of the snap, and where are you guys on that in terms of being confident with those guys?
Well, it was actually a thing that happens once every blue, in a lifetime almost. The left guard's foot was so quick and so wide, he actually kicked the ball. Nicked the ball, I should say, where it fluttered back. And credit to Blake. Blake still got the ball down. I feel like we could still make that kick, but certainly highlights the fact that even the smallest detail is not a small detail. It's a big one. The step has to be tighter. The alignment has to be a little bit more restricted so that doesn't happen again. But that's what happened. It got tipped, and that's what fluttered back. And luckily for us, it didn't get hit too hard where that thing could have gone over the snapper's head, holder's head.
Mario, when you have an extra week to prepare for a top 15 opponent in Cal, what extra preparation do you do? Are you a little bit more willing to make changes when you have an extra week before a premier opponent?
Well, I brought, as you can see, I brought a lot of paper today. I wanted to make sure I gave you guys exactly what we're telling our team so that it's reiterated again. The first thing was, like we talked about, we want to heal up and make sure we develop through our practice structure, through our regiment, 44 to 54 guys that can play winning football for us. We're not at that number count yet. So quality over quantity, getting healed up and making sure a lot of the guys that need more reps, that have to take that next step as a championship player, take that step for us. Number two was technique and fundamentals. We have to learn how to play with better pad level, use our hands better, dig our feet in the grounds, understand hat position, hand position, angles. running to the football, right, finishing with effort and being the best football condition and shape that we can be. Another thing that we do this week is we do a lot of professional and personal development. So we do a lot of site visits with our guys as it relates to their career choices, their fields of study. And we use the afternoons to do that. So we've had several guys go on site to different companies and making sure that they start, increasing their networking system and getting some hands-on experience in some of the fields of study they choose to be in. So that's certainly important. But the development of the football team continuing along the lines of discipline, where we continue to narrow or shorten or eliminate penalties. We still could eliminate more. We had 2 last week, really 4. 2 negated themselves, right, with them having a penalty as well. With preventing ourselves from having turnovers, we have 2 turnovers on the year. One was a punt, right, that nicked the leg of one of our return blockers, and the other one was a quarterback, running back exchange. So we've done a good job with protecting the football and not throwing the ball to the other team, and it could get even better. So those are big focuses for us. And then position by position and by each side of the ball, this is, I won't go into all of it because, but this reflects what each position group and each phase on our team is working on. And it is detailed by every coach with every player. There's feedback provided by it, graded film to go with it, and extensive work with the 2s and the 3s to get to that level where we feel we have more guys that can play. That is the longest answer I've given you in a long, long time. And I just wanted you to have enough information so you kind of saw exactly how we lined this week up. We went in spider pads, which is lighter contact work yesterday. Today was full gear, ending the day with a 2-minute period, a couple of shots down the field as well. And tomorrow we're going in full pads again, and we'll end the day with an overtime period. So we're going to work the situations as we also prepare for Cal, but also do a lot of good-on-good work, 1s versus 1s and 2s versus 2s.
Front left, James.
With the first bye week, Mario, you mentioned the things to improve, et cetera. The run game, I know this is somewhat nitpicking, but even if you just look at Auburn and Stanford, I realize they're very good opponents, but you rank 97th in rushing yards, where this was the identity and core strength of this offense a year ago. Even if you want to pass more, it seems like CJ is kind of caught in between. He's either not being patient enough or he's being too patient. Something's off here. He has not shown the same level of explosion. And not just to pick on him. You guys are just not achieving the same on the run game. What have you seen in these 4 games, but especially those 2 games?
We're off, we are. We're out of sync a little bit. And it starts with, making sure that we're on the same page. We are, so that's not an issue. Technique and fundamentals come into play. If the box is loaded, we still got to find a way to make some yards, and it really falls on all of us. So schematically, we have some good things. We're also working on some different things to create some wrinkles, to create some eyewash that help us achieve where we want to get to. But we know it's not good enough, and we take a lot of pride in that, and that's what we're working on in the bye week, and we expect to have better results going forward.
On the left, Eric.
How much of a week is this for recruiting? Obviously, you have assistants, I'm sure, all around the country right now. And then what benefit is there to, I think you have 20 commitments right now. It seems like a good start. And how much does that help kind of finalizing this class now and then even working on future classes?
Yeah, we've chosen to use the bye weeks as opposed to using Fridays. And it's part of the business, right? On Fridays when you're at a particular site, when you're on the road, typically most teams have 3 to 4 coaches out. And we've chosen this year not to do that, to really just kind of be with our team. And as we get a better understanding of how we do things on the road, I think in the future, you have to, going forward, you're going to have to put guys on the road. But that being said, since we did our work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, our coaches were on the road Sunday to be in place and position to recruit on Monday. And then tomorrow, right after practice should be over around 11 or so. They'll be on the road again to watch games and visit different schools and junior colleges on Friday and Saturday, and we'll have the same regiment for the next bye week as well. So I guess to answer your question, with the 42 opportunities that we're allowed to evaluate during the fall, we're using every single one of them, and it does require, since we do have our recruiting efforts are extending and expanding nationally, it you could spread yourself a little bit thin, but that's okay. I mean, I guess they put on those little goggles they used to fall asleep on the plane and catch up on their rest. They got all that fancy stuff, so our coaches will come back nice and refreshed and ready to go to work.
Middle, Jerry.
Yeah, Coach, you touched on the offensive line. I wanted to elaborate a little bit. Question. So you said schematically you might be changing a few things, but beyond that, you've got 4 senior, and with Jake out, you still had 4 seniors. Panay Sewell, the least experience, is probably the top graded, at least. I don't know if he graded high with you the same way as what we hear. So does this open up an opportunity for the second guys to get in and maybe challenge the first team? I mean, they've got the experience. The 4 seniors have the experience. Certainly the execution should be there after 5 years on some of them. So is there a challenge now for some of those guys to get in some playing time that aren't starting?
Well, I think our guys are always going to feel the challenge because we provide that in practice all the time. When you look at our offensive line and the way that they've been performed, there's a lot of positive stuff. I don't think you could point right at them and say, okay, look, you guys aren't getting it done. The running game comes with a lot of things, particularly when you run open edge runs, right? You don't have a tight end. You make runs go towards a 2-man surface. Teams are playing odd tight, start bringing double edge pressure. You're squeezed out. You're thinned out. Calls for the ball to be spit out there, right, in the RPO game. Calls for the quick game to come into play or screens, something of that nature, or throwing the ball down the field. And we had to do that at times. And other times, you know what? Sometimes you're outnumbered and you're out leveraged, and you just got to come up with a play. You got to create a hole. You got to run your feet through contact. So the things that we're working on fundamentally and technically will certainly help. In terms of wrinkles in that, wrinkles are always going to help. You work on them during the bye week, but we feel confident that the issues that we have had or the lesser productivity that we've had in the run game, that we're going to fix it during the week and be a better football team.
All right, Tyson.
You just talked a little bit about kind of the expanding recruiting net. Coming off of last year's recruiting class where you guys had obvious success, what was kind of like the biggest, obviously changes depending on personnel and players available change, but just in terms of your guys' overall kind of approach, did you guys highlight anything to kind of build this kind of second, third cycle for you guys?
Well, I mean, we always want to focus on the West Coast. That's always going to be first and foremost the priority. What has happened is that Oregon is Oregon, and the brand it calls for attention all over the country. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from places and players and coaches that are far away, but that are excellent, elite people and competitors and football players. And as long as we feel that there's a strong connection there and it's real and it's genuine and there's a legitimate desire to come out west and be part of this family, it's something that we pursue and investigate top to bottom to see if it's the right fit. So it just, it's happening more and more, but we don't want to extend ourselves too much where we have to, maybe overextend ourselves during the season. But at the same time, we can't turn a blind eye to tremendous opportunities because, as you've seen over the years, there have been some great players, phenomenal players here at the University of Oregon that have come from all over. So it's hard to predict. So I didn't answer your question at all. But we're trying to get the best guys wherever they are, as long as you're super quality people that have the right intentions, that are driven, that are self-starters, and really not only want to do great for themselves, but want to be a part of this family. That's got to be a huge part of it. You got to want to be a part of the Oregon family.
James on the left.
I'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, Mario. One, on the pass rushers front. On one hand, you guys are doing great by sacks and tackles for loss, so this is a little nitpicky. But at times Saturday, Gus and Kayvon in particular were, and Lamar, were so close to getting home. They were not even a step, within a step, you could clearly see. What is going to be the key for them to go that next step so that they are able to take down those guys who are less mobile and record those sacks? Because you're getting the numbers, but just you want those edge guys to get home more. And secondly, I know how you feel about blindside blocks, but Johnny has been called for a couple of them so far. Their effort plays, but how have you felt in his execution of those?
Sure. Well, the first part about the rush itself, it's good observation. When you rush the passer, it comes in 2 ways, right? You got to either press the pocket or you got to make the edges short, narrow, right? You got to constrict it. Well, it's all about studying the launch point of the quarterback. Where is he setting up to throw that ball? Because if that guy's sticking a foot at 9 yards and scooching up to 7 and 6, well, press in the middle of the pocket, right? The interior defensive line has to create the push where he cannot step up. So those two work hand in hand, and there are a couple times where they're really trying to trim the fat off the edge there and try to get to the quarterback at 7, almost 6.5, 6 yards. and it probably got widened a little bit too much. And I think Stanford's tackles felt speed rush, and they started flipping their hips. They started finding a hip and just barely running a guy by. Now, when you do that, also you force the guy to step up, and then he's probably got to slide out. So that was part of the whole deal. We want to make the quarterback uncomfortable and move around. And I think as our guys become more comfortable becoming speed to power rushers, you know what I mean? Where you could now take a little bit of the speed off the edge and now constrict the pocket more on the edges, will be more effective. And that's been a huge point of emphasis this week with our technical and fundamental work. Blindside blocks, well, it's a rule, and it's a good rule. It's a good rule. It's just hard to coach sometimes because, for example, Johnny's, you saw what he's trying to do, right? Those are his rules. His pulls are push and then, crack, meaning that if that corner is soft and the safety bolts down the field, he's got to put a hat on the guy. Well, he's not trying to put a hat, literally a head-to-head shot on the guy. He's trying to make sure he does block his man. He's an unaccounted for defender. He's accounted for by our wide receiver, and the receiver's got to get there fast. So it's a hard thing. You can't tell him to slow down because he won't get there. You can't tell him not to be aggressive. He's got to remove his hat. In terms of forcible contact, that's tied into the penalty. That's a difficult part because you almost gotta take the charge, but your feet aren't really set. So how do you take the charge, right? You got to get there at 100 miles per hour, throw your hands up, and make sure that, or you use your hands, right? That's how the rule has been. It's alleviated some of the teaching technique difficulties with that. Is get there, use your hands. Just make sure it doesn't look or feel like forcible contact where someone's trying to injure somebody. And so I got to do a better job coaching it.
Another question about the running backs or the run game. This may be an overgeneralization, but with Auburn and Stanford, with Scarlett, I can't remember the back for them, that seems like they would wait, and then cut back and a hole to go through quite often. Whereas it seems, again, maybe a generalization with Fidel and Dye, it's kind of like, here's where I'm supposed to go, and it's more like a little tunnel vision maybe. Is there something about their schematic or their offense, the way they run block, that makes that open up more for them and not for you? Or, just kind of a layman's question here, Coach.
No, it's good. This I love talking football because this is important stuff to know. Inside zone is inside zone. I could say that the way that Auburn runs it, the back is a little bit more patient, because in some of the 3-down stuff, they have the ability to keep those 5 guys on 3 guys and just stay there, right? They don't have to come off for second-level guys because our linebackers are a little bit off the ball. And sometimes we jumped around in the gaps and they were able to, stick a foot in the ground, jump cut, and then finally find a hole and go in there. And I think Stanford had some success in that first drive, particularly before we kind of felt our way back into how we have to fit our runs and have gap discipline, eye discipline first and foremost, right? Because like you said, inside zone is the same here as it is, anywhere else in the country. The variations of it, for example, their backside guard and tackle, instead of blocking zone, having the front side block zone, man blocking the backside, inserting a tight end where now it's a different fit for the back, it's a different fit for the linebacker, can create some issue, especially early if you haven't seen it as much. And it's something that, could present some problems. But quick adjustments are made to it because your gap responsibilities are still going to be the same. Our guys, they've ran hard. They have. And I have absolutely no issues at all with their effort, desire, and want to. Sometimes have we pressed a little bit? Maybe. I think, those are things that are fixable with time, seeing things a little bit more consistently. We're running some stuff out of the far back position in the gun, sometimes out of the pistol. Those are 2 very different runs. They're 2 very different angles. Eye discipline is different, right? Your reads are different, right? Sometimes the blocks are way in front of the running back. Sometimes the running back is on top of those blocks right now. And I know with the repetition, okay, and continual work at the technique and the fundamentals that come with that and with eye discipline will give us better results, And we've done it before, and we've been good at it before, and we got to get back on track. And these last 2 days have shown that, we're making ground towards that again. But that's why you see sometimes backs sit and wait. It all depends on the front, what is shown to it, Sometimes there's 5 guys up there and 2 linebackers in the box, and he better go because he's not going to have any help with the backside linebacker. So it's all front, blocking surface and track related. Does that make sense?
Time for two more.
Okay. No, I thought that's good, man. I love talking that stuff because it is important. You know, every single one of these things has a different little twist to it. I know I'm trying to keep answers short because I'm trying to stay on time, but I think it's important with those things because you know what? When you have these two backs, one's a true sophomore, one's a redshirt sophomore, they don't know it all, you know, and they're eager. They're guys that want to be great, and things like that. Those kind of questions are part of our meetings as well, and showing just tons of tape on how it looks versus this front versus that front versus nickel fire versus edge pressure on the backside versus a TE, and now the T technique, the three technique dug himself into the tackle in the end, went all the way around, but it was outside zone and the read disappeared, but now a new read appeared. What do I do, coach? Those scenarios show up more and more and more, you know, so.
Brian, then Tyson.
Mario, just last weekend alone, number 10 Utah lost at SC to a third string quarterback. Arizona State lost at home to Colorado. And UCLA stunned Washington State, winless versus undefeated there. How do you feel about the parity in this league? Is it good for the conference?
I think it is. I think I think people are becoming more aware. You look at 6 top 25 teams last week, and now they got to play each other within conference, and every single game is a tight game. Everything is a back and forth. It speaks highly for the level of parity and competition inside the Pac-12, and it's only going to get better.
Tyson.
How much interaction do you have with Blake during practice, just with the punting team in general, and just his improvement this year? Is that something where once it gets into the games, you're like, oh, shoot, this is nice? Or like,
I've coached every bit of his improvement all by myself. I don't pretend to be a punting guru or a kicking coach. I am not. I can tell you about the operation, how to block it, how to protect it, make sure the shield's on point. But to me, it's a testament to him, to Coach Williams, the amount of work and time he has put into it, because his play has just, the trajectory of his play just keeps going up and up. So, no, all credit, I would give all credit to Blake. 0 for me. 0.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, guys, thank you.
You have a good birthday?
You know what? I asked my family if I could spend an extra 4 hours on Cal, and they gave it to me. So I got some extra time film watching. I tried to be a kicking guru. I really did. And I sat there for about 3 hours. I said, all right, we'll hire a guy for that stuff, man. I ain't doing that, you know. Let me focus on the other stuff.
Right?
What's that?
It's just all about your levers, right?
Well, you know, it's about the drop. It's, you know, last year he was so inconsistent, right? I mean, just the simplicity of this versus this.
Great thinking. Yeah.
And it is like,
We're just
it's
on the
night
same
and day.
page.
You should see some
Great
of the
minds,
punts in
Rob.
practice that this guy has hit. He's rocketed 70, 75 yarders. That